Hi everyone, so I'm just going to give you a quick tutorial on how to put together this puff pastry dough. It's very simple, there is nothing intimidating, I promise there is no reason to be scared. So, to begin with, the first thing you need is 1 cup of flour. I've pre-measured all my ingredients just to save time. We've got 1/3 cup of water, or 80 grams of water. And then I've got 115 grams of butter, or 1/2 cup. And then I just got a wooden spoon, a rolling pin, a soft spatula, and then a separate bowl just to mix everything in. So what we're going to start with is we're just going to set our butter aside. And we're going to pour our flour into this bowl. Add your water. There's no finesse necessary. And then just using the wooden spoon, we're going to bring it together to form a dough. And you basically want to just keep working it until the dough starts pulling away from the sides of the bowl. Just keep moving it around. Really want to just work as much of that loose flour on the outside back in. Alright, once it's about there, you can start kneading with your hands. Now, this is a very sticky dough, so don't be put off by its consistency. So I'm just going to bring it together with my hands like so. Make sure you get all those little bits. And just use the ball to pick up all the little bits that are fighting to not be a part of it. Alright. So once you've got your ball, you're just going to knead it a bit. Set your bowl aside, we are going to use it again. And I'm just going to lightly dust the surface that I'm working on. And I'm just going to knead that dough. It's just going to activate the gluten a bit. Keep picking up all those little bits. And it is going to be sticky, so don't worry about that. Knead, roll, knead, roll, and you should have a ball of dough. Now, it should be fairly sticky. If it's not, you can just add a little bit of water and just work that in, or if you find that it's too sticky, you can add a little bit of flour. But you really do want a nice sticky dough. If it's not sticky, it's not right, so mine's quite tacky. All right, so all we're going to do now is we're going to roll it into a ball. We're going to leave it on the counter, and I'm just going to cover it with that bowl, and I'm going to leave it to rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, so now our dough has been resting for about 15 minutes. So now you'll see it's just come together beautifully, so it should be nice and smooth. So now what you want to do is you want to just lightly flour your surface that you're working on. Okay, so our dough doesn't stick. And just lightly flour it on top. The objective here is to work our dough into a square. So we're just going to roll. And I'm just going to flip it in between. If it starts pulling out of that square, just use your fingers to stretch it back into shape. Okay, so the first shape we're working towards is a square, just remember that. It's not going to be particularly big. We're not going for size here. What you do want to try and aim for is that it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, so about 3 millimeters for those of you working in millimeters. So, if that happens, it just means that you need a touch more flour. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab some flour there. All right. So I'm happy with that thickness. I'm just gonna stretch it into that square shape that I so desire. Okay. When you've got your square, what I want you to imagine is that you're going to take your square and visually you're going to divide it into 3 sections. So you can maybe just make yourself a little guide like so. Okay? You're going to start spreading your butter. So here I've got my butter and I'm just going to divide it into what I would imagine is thirds. Okay, so you've got a third, I think I need a bit more there, a third there and a third there. Maybe a bit more there. All right, so we're going to take 1/3 of the butter. And I'm going to just lay it on the bottom 2/3 of my dough here. Okay, so just lay it on. When you spread it, make sure you leave yourself a little bit of a border. Not so much at the end, but just on the sides, because otherwise when you start rolling again, it's just going to squish out the sides and it's going to make your rolling area really, really messy. So leave yourself a little border and just spread that butter as evenly as you can. The great thing about this is you don't have to be particularly precise or neat with your work. It's very forgiving. All right, so once you're happy with that spread, you're now going to take that top section and you're going to fold that over first. All right, like so. Then the bottom section, and you're going to fold it like you're folding a 3-fold letter. Okay, fold that across like so. Now a bit more flour just to help you with your rolling. I'm going to flour my surface as well. And then just gently ease that off the counter. Make sure your flour's under there. And now we are going to roll it again. And again, we want to get to that 1/8 thickness. So you see how my butter is coming out the top. I mean, it's inevitable, but if you can avoid it, try to, because what happens is if the butter gets onto your rolling pin, it's going to stick to your dough as you're rolling, which is fine. You can just keep adding more flour, as I'm going to have to. I'm being really frugal with the flour. Okay. So now the second shape. So remember the first shape we were aiming for was a square. Now the shape we're aiming for is a rectangle. Don't worry if your butter starts popping out, it's fine, it's gonna happen. Just keep reworking that. All right, so you can see it does get a bit messy, but we shall persevere. All right, what you don't want is it pulling away like that. That's fine. So I'm happy with that thickness. Make sure it's even. And again, if you don't have a rectangle, just use your fingers to shape it the way you want it. All right, we're now going to take the second third of our butter. I still think that one's too much. Let me grab that. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, and again, you're going to divide it into 3 sections, like so. And we're going to spread the butter. So this process is called laminating. And the reason we do this is by adding the butter, you are creating a barrier between your layers of pastry that's going to create steam, and that's going to create those lovely little thin flaky bits that you see in your puff pastry. All right, so remember to leave that border around the edge just to avoid any additional mess over and above the mess we've already created. I'm just going to get rid of that. All right, same process. So you take the unbuttered side, you fold that in first, and just stretch it out so that it meets, and then take the buttered bottom piece, fold that over, and again stretch it so that your sides meet. Consistency is key here. All right, gently lift that off your surface. We're gonna just, I'm using way too little flour. Okay. All right, and now this is our final rollout. So again, we're going for a rectangular shape in our roll, and we want to make sure that that you've got a 1/8 inch thickness or 3 millimeters. Okay, so just roll it out. Don't be too gung-ho with this because now you've got quite a lot of butter in there, so just gentle rolls will do. It ain't no race. You can take your time. And just keep checking that thickness. All right, it's still too thick, but it's sticking, so I'm gonna add a bit more flour. And again, don't worry if it pulls out of shape, because we can stretch it with our hands. Okay, probably go a bit thinner. I'm just gonna go once in the other direction. So you'll see the butter is not your friend. It starts sticking and pulling away at the dough. So if you can avoid that, try to. All right, I'm gonna leave mine there. Now here's where you can just use your fingers and just stretch it into the desired shape you want. All right, so now we're gonna take the rest of our butter and we are gonna spread it over the entire thing, but you're gonna leave a rim, probably about two fingers thick at the top, unbuttered. All right, so spread it all over, nice and even. And this time you can go all the way to the sides because we're going to be rolling it into a log next, so no more rolling with the rolling pin. Just try and get your butter even. So what I was saying earlier about the laminating process is the butter is going to create that steam. So you want it nice and even. Just get rid of that last bit. Okay. Now starting at the bottom, I'm just gonna, okay, I've got way too much butter there. Just loosen it. All right. So once it's loosened from your counter, You want to roll it nice and tight, and you're aiming for uniformity here. All right. Oh my gosh, this side is a disaster. All right, there we go. Okay, so a nice tight roll. Just roll it into a log. And when you get to that top bit, you're just going to take some water with your finger. So just wet your finger. And this is just going to seal our log. Like so. Okay. And you should have a nice, fairly even log. Like so. Simple. Alright, so I'm just going to take some cling film and I'm just going to place my log on the cling film, move it to one side. I was really trying to avoid getting this in the butter, but alright, so just roll your log, seal off the edges by twisting them. And you can just twist it in like so. Alright, and once you've got your beautiful log, pop it in the fridge. We're going to rest that overnight, and we'll be back to fill it with custard and all things good and yummy. Pop it in the fridge. And we're done. So just things to remember with making this dough. Make sure that you get your thickness nice and consistent. So we're aiming for 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters thick on every roll. Your first shape you want to roll to is a square. Your second and your third are both rectangles. Make sure when you're spreading your butter that you always leave a border so that you don't get that delightful mess that I had to deal with. Although it's not the end of the world if you do. It just means that you need to be a little bit more delicate with your handling of the dough. And then finally, just make sure that you put that strip of water at the top on your final roll when you roll it into the log so it seals your dough off. That's it.